Join us by the fireside for our evening tales of true life's strange experiences with things that lie beyond the veil of the known and into the misty depths of the mysterious and unknown. My lifelong paranormal experiences. My grandfather had a house, and in this house, this old home, there was a basement and there was a crawl space. And my grandfather would go in there and he'd kind of move stuff around that the previous owners had left in there. But he didn't really like me to go in there much. So, unless he was in there. If he was in there, he was okay with it. But anyway, he ended up having that sealed off so that I wouldn't go in there by myself when he wasn't there. So this crawl space was like a small kind of walk-in room. You just sort of opened it up and there was this little room there. And it was high enough for me to stand in. Now, the strange thing is the crawl space had another doorway, and that led into another room that was actually far more spacious and had lots of small furniture. It had a crib, a bouncy horse, a table. There was even a small cabinet and a bowl that I remember. And there was a bed frame that was small and had no mattress, but it had this mesh on it where a mattress pad was supposed to go. My grandpa didn't go in that room, and he would ask me to go out, if I tried to go in there. It was full of stuff that was left behind by the previous owners. Anyway, I was about 4 years old when I made a friend, a little girl named Rachel. Rachel was about my age, and she always wore this little yellow dress with a white apron, and she had a ribbon in her hair like a headband. She never used to talk much, but we played often in the basement and also in the backyard. She would talk, but only in whispers, and then she would go in a corner or hide behind furniture. She didn't like to go near the crawl space. She was afraid of it. And one day I tried to convince her it was safe by, just going in there myself. So I went in and thought to show her the room with all the, the furniture that was just kind of kid size. And she grabbed my hand to try and pull me out of the room. She shook her head and her eyes were really wide. Something jerked me back away from her. And then I looked back. In there was a man with long, dirty fingers, and he had wild, long hair, and he was covered from head to toe in dirt. When he smiled, and this was what was really terrifying, his mouth was full of fangs. I ran out of that crawl space, screaming, and I ran into the backyard, and my grandpa came rushing up to me. I told him what I saw, and he went into the crawl space with a determined look and then pulled out all the junk in that room and aired them out into the sun. He then packed that room with insulation and boarded it up. I never saw the man again. But I also never saw Rachel, and in fact, my family never had seen her. They say she was my imaginary friend, and I began to believe it. It wasn't until I was in my 20s when my uncle revealed that when he used to babysit me, he once heard me talking to Rachel. And when he glanced over, he did see this outline of a little girl with glowing yellow dress. When I was about 10 years old, one of the houses my parents and I had moved into had a basement that was deep under the house. It covered the whole floor plan. My mom would do laundry down there and would often notice all my toys got scattered on the floor from the storage boxes. And she assumed that, I was downstairs and that I was playing with them, and she'd call me over to pick them up. I would go, but I didn't play with these toys. They were all old, and I was always outside riding my bike with my neighbors. My mom figured out it wasn't me spreading out the toys, and when she saw my old bicycle move by itself as she was loading clothes into the dryer, and I wasn't in the basement with her, she freaked out. And she just said in her best mom's voice, "Don't try to scare me down here." And the tricycle stopped. I came face to face with the ghost when I woke up one night in my bedroom to find a little boy kneeling beside my bed and staring at me. His forearms were resting on the mattress, and it was like he was leaning his head on the side of one of his forearms. At first, I thought that it was maybe one of my cousins who's around the same age, so I just kind of said, "Hey, you come to sleep over?" When the kid didn't respond or say anything and just kept staring, I leaned my face in real close, in as nose to nose kind of close. And that's when I saw that there were no whites in his eyes, and I could see through him. I pulled quickly away and then hid under my covers because I was so scared. Fortunately, we moved out shortly after. And another experience I had, I had quite a few, that's why I'm making a list of them. When I was 12 years old, we were in a brand new house, sitting at dinner table with my parents. Stepdad starts grumbling again at the dinner table. He's the kind of person who liked to do this punk move, like he's going to hit me with his elbow or something like that, so that I flinch. He's just always doing stuff like that. When I was smaller, he used to try to rip my face off. But since I was big now, he just intimidated me with the fear of a potential beating. My mom was sitting across from me and massaging her forehead. I could tell that he was talking crap to her, but she wasn't taking the bait. It angered me. His voice, her silence, the whole situation just bugged me. I could see my mom beginning to unravel, though, and she let out this sudden growl or roar. And at the same time, I felt something hot like a curling iron close to the scalp. It was so hot, and several plates, including his, suddenly shattered. He quieted down. He touched my plate and the other one that wasn't broken. Then he got up, still mumbling, but I heard the break in his voice. I looked at my mom, but she ignored what happened, and so did I too. So I don't know what that was about, but it seemed like something had spoken through my mom, and it didn't sound human. Something was going on. And then another experience I had was when I was probably about 13 years old, and we were in a different country. The neighbors had found one of those spirit boards, Ouija or something, and some of us began to fool around with it, playing with it. And I was making it move the first couple of tries. By midnight, the thing was vibrating under our fingers and moving even when we were half awake. It spelled out, "Come back to me," when I asked in a teenage girly fashion which guy was the most interested in me and why he was thinking about me. I didn't realize at the time that my real father, the estranged one, was looking for me and was still pining to be reunited with me and my mom. We were 20 years later. When the gossipy girls began to use the board, the tone changed to threatening, but it calmed when I used it. It's not something I would ever touch again, to be honest. And then in high school, maybe 16, 17 years old, college age, I started to have flashes of things about people around me. I kept seeing things like, a classmate talking to a man that I didn't recognize, and I finally asked her about it. She admitted that she was seeing a boy off campus and he was older. I began to turn it into some kind of parlor trick kind of thing. At parties, I would have people gather around and I'd read them, usually seeing a scene that they recently experienced that I wasn't present to witness, but they would always confirm that it actually happened. And then I started seeing things about my friends that they couldn't confirm. I saw one friend with a guy that she didn't recognize, and I saw her pregnant, but she had no boyfriend and wasn't pregnant. Then I saw my best friend with this guy, and they were on a boat, and we both knew that she wasn't dating and couldn't swim. So I began to think I was losing my touch, and I stopped. Anyway, we graduated college, and this was a couple of years later, and the girl that wasn't pregnant, well, she graduated 5 months pregnant, and was engaged to a guy who moved into the same boarding house. My best friend winded up meeting her husband on a ferry. He won her over by promising to jump in after her if she fell off the boat. And then skip to 2021 years old. While I was on a plane, I was descending towards Los Angeles. I looked out the window and I vividly saw a giant city made of black mist looming over LA on the ground. I first thought that it was smog or rain clouds or something, but the shapes were too angular and too condensed together, and the sunlight reflected on surfaces very sharply. It looked like giant stony skyscrapers. I still tried to search for it again, but I can't see it anymore. I'm pretty sure it was there. I wish I had the presence of mind to take a picture of it, and I wonder if it would have come out, but I don't know. And then another story. When I moved to California, I visited the Coronado with family, and we walked through this hotel. It's kind of a fancy hotel if anyone hasn't been there. It's quite big and old. And my cousins were leaning over a railing and they were overlooking a pool, and I was walking over to them to stand by them. I was gazing at the pool as I walked over, and then I saw a tall, slender woman in this giant black sun hat and black lace robe at the end of the pool. As I drew nearer to the railing, she had slipped into the pool and she began moving across the water like she was going through it. But it was odd because she wasn't moving her arms or swimming. When I reached the railing, I asked my cousins if they thought the lady was swimming weird, and then they asked, "What lady?" The pool, to them, was empty. But I saw the lady by the edge of the pool again, and she was kind of lurking over it. I came to find out that the Hotel Coronado is actually quite famously haunted, so it wasn't surprising once I found that out. I tend to avoid looking into people's eyes too deeply normally because I sometimes get flashes of scenes from their lives. The last time that happened was during a job interview, and I saw the lady who was interviewing me in a flash scene. She was going at it with another man on her desk. The man was not the dude in her family picture, so it looked like she was cheating on her husband. So I started to block this stuff because I really, I didn't want to see this stuff. It was none of my business. I started to use tarot cards and I started to read them, and the flashes came out that way. I've seen pregnancies, grieving, death, divorce. I've seen major life changes, increased incomes, and so on. I don't do it so much now because the last reading I gave, I saw someone's loved one passing away. And that turned out to be my grandpa. But I didn't want to interpret that, and it happened anyway. There was nothing I could do. And I really would rather not have seen it. Anyway, but despite all this, I don't know what to believe. I'm still wondering about all the things I've experienced. And I just, have a lot of questions and I'm not sure what to think. But perhaps I have some kind of powers or something. I don't know. Well, it sounds like you are naturally psychic, clairvoyant, um, and that this is actually, it's a gift. If you can learn to see it as a gift instead of a curse, then you might find that that'll help you as well, and you'll start to see more positive things too in this gift rather than just being at the mercy of, whatever negative things sort of open up to you about people's lives. So it's not always easy though, because having this gift can sometimes mean that, you do see things that you'd rather not see. So it's a choice you have to decide, either to shut it down if you can, or see it as a gift and use it as a tool to help yourself, maybe help others. It's up to you. This summer camp. This last summer, my girlfriend took me to a summer camp that she usually works at. It was completely empty. There were no rangers or guests at the Northeast Georgia camp. So we traversed the trails, and she revealed the little secret paths in history that one wouldn't get to appreciate on a normal visit. The kind of history that things like the visit of John Bartram and the Cherokee people who once used to live there. When finally we were ready to leave, we talked a little more on the way back to the parking lot. Now, this camp has an amphitheater. It has little walls extended beyond the bottom rows to sandwich visitors between it and the lake the amphitheater faces, guiding them towards the seats or away from them. And behind that wall, I saw a tall, dark figure with lanky limbs, and it had no face. It had no face but a head with these weird three protrusions that extended upwards, and they kind of bent down as if weighing themselves down. It was walking a slow, kind of ponderous walk, and its hands were swinging past its knees. And as if noticing my gaze, it bent down and curled into a ball behind the wall and disappeared. I didn't know what to do, but I didn't freak out. I started questioning my girlfriend insistently. Did you see that? What was it? Is anyone here? She managed to extract from me what I saw of that being, and then she told me to run. The campers who work there insist that the camp is haunted. None dare to walk alone between the buildings at night. After driving out of the camp, my girlfriend and I discussed everything I saw. Some of the paranormal things that seemed to happen, the things others have seen. A house a group saw on Google Maps in the forest, and then only to find no trace in the same clearing later on. A large white possum that was human-sized to be exact, that was captured on a hunting camera and seen by a counselor and some Boy Scouts that she was hiking with. These walkers tend to be one of those happenings. And in the last part is what cinches this for me. My girlfriend didn't tell anyone of what I saw. I felt a little crazy myself. Obviously, this was a mistake on my part. Until my girlfriend and I talked one night, she told me this. A group of counselors, her included, hung out in teaching center late at night. They planned to sleep there and get away with some of the other people that they had to share rooms with. And then, after talking late into the night, everybody fell asleep in their bags. One counselor woke up again and was having trouble sleeping. He looked out into the forest surrounding the teaching center, and he saw them. It wasn't just one walker. There were 3 walkers that were treading a path around the center. They walked a circle around the gathered. Then they walked away. The counselor didn't find sleep for a long time. He didn't even tell the others of the events of that night until a week later. Then my girlfriend told of what I saw. The counselors there are adamant that that camp is haunted. And nothing else happened to us after we stayed there, but that was a very strange experience. It doesn't sound terrifying, but it was haunting, and I'll never forget it.